Public debate in Japan over how visitors behave has sharpened lately, with multilingual signage turning into a lightning rod. Across hotels, short-stay rentals, eateries, and rail hubs, notices commonly appear in Japanese, English, Korean, and simplified Chinese. The friction rarely stems from using several languages. It usually arises when the Chinese text is phrased or laid out in a different way, which many online observers read as singling out one audience. A widely circulated example from July captures this dynamic. A traveler staying in an Osaka apartment uploaded a photo of a quiet hours placard rendered in 4 languages. The Japanese, English, and Korean versions asked guests to keep noise down after 11 p.m., but the simplified Chinese line moved to the threshold to 9 p.m. That discrepancy set off conjecture. Some people suggested the host was reacting to earlier complaints and therefore chose a stricter cutoff for the group they believed posed higher risk. Others condemned the mismatch as arbitrary and needlessly antagonistic. In June, a separate flap focused on typography. Footage recorded by a Chinese-speaking visitor showed "no smoking" printed in simplified Chinese at a much larger size than the Japanese, English, or Korean equivalents. Defenders said the aim was clarity for a big share of patrons. Detractors argued the visual emphasis stigmatized one group. Disputes like this recur whenever a sign appears to target behavior through a single language, instead of presenting one uniform standard for everyone. Some cases have gone beyond clumsiness into outright misconduct. In Osaka's Nishi ward, a restaurant posted a simplified Chinese notice boldly stating Chinese customers would not be served. Backlash came swiftly. The parent company removed the sign and issued an apology in 2 languages, calling it an unauthorized action by the on-site manager. In Kyoto, another establishment put up a simplified Chinese warning. Those who do not follow rules do not enter, ending with, "Get out." Local commentary suggested the owner was reacting to repeated problems, but by directing the message at only one language, the sign looked like a nationality ban rather than a rule about conduct. 2 recurring themes sit beneath these episodes. First, the craft of communication, timing details, font hierarchy, tone. Second, the scope of the rule, a universal standard versus a message that appears to target a nationality. When copy or layout is clumsy, a simple behavior reminder can be read as discrimination, feeding cycles of accusation and counter-accusation online. Crowding magnifies the tension. With inbound travel surging, especially in Tokyo, Osaka, and Kyoto, Japan's unwritten public space norms, quiet rail cars, no eating on board, tidy lines, respect for priority seating, are tested more often. Media sometimes borrow the phrase spillovers such as loud conversation on trains, sitting on station floors, cutting in line, or isolated vandalism. These behaviors are not unique to one community, but because Chinese-speaking travelers are numerous, incidents involving them draw disproportionate attention and are too readily generalized. There is also a split-screen effect. Some long-term Chinese residents urge others to judge behaviors rather than passports. Meanwhile, social posts contrast Taiwanese tourists, often characterized as punctual, soft-spoken, and rule-abiding, with visitors from mainland China. Such comparisons can slide into crude civility rankings. A more useful lens is rule culture. Societies vary in how tightly they police noise, space, and order. Visitors benefit from clear guidance. Hosts benefit from neutral, even-handed design. From an operations angle, owners often justify emphasizing the language read by the largest sub-audience or by the group most likely to miss a rule. The takeaway, however, is that consistency beats guesswork. If rules are published in 4 languages, keep the content aligned identical quiet hours and conditions so intent isn't lost in translation. Where possible, favor universally understood pictograms and uncomplicated layouts. Pictures cut both reading load and the sense of being singled out. Practical ways to lower friction. Keep all language versions synchronized. Don't impose stricter hours or unique conditions in just one language. Lead with icons, then text. Standard symbols for "no smoking," "quiet please," "queue here," and "close the door" bridge language gaps. Anchor rules in conduct, not identity. Service may be refused for rule violations is fair and enforceable. Nationality bans are neither. Offer brief reasons. For fire safety. To protect residents' sleep. Clarity of purpose boosts voluntary compliance. Train frontline staff in friendly prompts and simple scripts, greetings, apologies, directions, across key languages. Communicate throughout the journey, set expectations in the booking flow, repeat them at check-in, and recap succinctly at checkout. Adjust the environment, add designated rest areas to discourage floor sitting. Place bins where litter tends to accumulate. Travelers, for their part, can adopt small habits with outsized impact. Speak quietly on trains. Avoid eating where it's not allowed. Queue without crowding. Respect priority seating. Observe residential quiet hours. Close doors when heating or cooling is on and read posted notices. These practices form a shared language of respect. The media context complicates everything. Snippets, an abrasive placard, a heated argument, go viral faster than context. It's tempting to leap from a handful of clips to broad judgments about a whole community. A steadier approach asks, did complaints spike at that venue? Did a new manager overcorrect? Was a legal boundary crossed, e.g. nationality discrimination, even if the intent was crowd control? Businesses have every right to protect order, but blanket bans by nationality are unlawful and self-defeating. At the same time, labeling every neutral rule reminder as prejudice doesn't help. Societies with tight public order norms will state them plainly. The practical middle is clear. Venues refine wording and design so rules apply to all. Visitors make reasonable efforts to adapt to local expectations. Beyond manners lies intercultural skill, noticing signals, grasping unspoken norms, and resolving friction without assuming bad faith. Japan places high value on quiet, punctuality, and spatial order. Many travelers won't intuit those values unless shown. That's why brief explainer videos on planes and trains, and simple do/don't handouts at tourist information desks, and consistent iconography in shops and rentals are worth the effort. Influencers and community groups can also circulate concrete, unwritten rules in Chinese and other languages to preempt misunderstandings. A broader demographic shift underpins the story. The number of Chinese nationals living in Japan has grown and diversified. Beyond students and trainees, more investors, managers, and highly skilled workers are arriving, with families following via standard residence channels. Reports of resort property investment from Hokkaido to Shizuoka have emerged. As neighborhoods welcome new residents and businesses, integration becomes a two-way project. Host communities uphold equal treatment and resist bias. Newcomers pick up language basics, civic rules, and local expectations. Real integration shows up less in slogans and more in everyday conduct. Policy has to keep up. Multilingual public information, accessible legal/medical/education support for immigrant families, and forums where long-time residents and newcomers speak with, not past each other. Otherwise, viral fragments will frame the debate instead of shared problem-solving. In the end, signs that say, quiet after 9 p.m. or close the door while the heater is on will continue to appear wherever crowds thicken and norms clash. The goal is to make them tools, not tripwires. Critique behaviors, not identities. Standardize content across languages. Promote responsible travel. Teach intercultural skills to staff and guests alike. Japan's reputation for order, courtesy, and meticulous service, qualities that attract many Chinese-speaking visitors and immigrants, deserves protection. That responsibility is shared. Hosts should communicate and enforce rules fairly and gracefully. Visitors and new residents should adjust habits and learn the soft rules that aren't obvious at first glance. Civility doesn't carry a passport, and neither do stereotypes. Keep attention on conduct, and most friction becomes manageable. Clearer signage here, a kinder reminder there, and a little patience for why others act the way they do. In that setting, a multilingual notice at the door is simply what it should be: useful information, rather than kindling for the next online flare-up. Over recent months, Dongguan in Guangdong province has re-entered China's news cycle. Once branded the factory of the world, a city that shipped vast quantities of electronics and apparel and stood as a manufacturing icon, it presents a new face. By day, the hush of dormant industrial parks. By night, the return of glittering neon and a pulse of sound. Disco venues, bars, KTV rooms, and government-backed night markets are reopening in waves, and where assembly line workers once streamed out, nightlife seekers now fill the streets. After a prolonged industrial downturn, city leaders have placed a big wager on the nighttime economy. They've loosened entertainment sector rules, slashed permit timelines, and are trying to revive a nightlife scene that was once cut down. Dongguan's arc reflects Chinese reform era. Beginning in the 1980s, capital from Hong Kong and abroad poured in. Parts for phones, computer gear, garments, furniture, virtually everything rolled off local lines and onto ships. In the early 2010s, people joked you could make anything here. But the crest didn't hold. Wages climbed, overseas demand softened, and US-China trade friction bit, setting off factory shutdowns. The 2020 pandemic delivered another shock. Exports sank and layoffs spread. The city idled. The glow of former prosperity dimmed. Any discussion of Dongguan's nightlife must reckon with 2014, when authorities launched a sweeping crackdown on sex and illicit trades. Thousands of venues closed in a single night. Five-star lobbies went silent, neon died, and the city's after-dark economy collapsed. Today, weed-choked shells of once grand buildings still mark that reversal. Almost a decade later, entertainment is back on the agenda. In July 2025, the city rolled out a policy to fast-track performance permits at bars and clubs. Renovations sprouted on corners, posters promised grand reopenings. "The factories may be gone, but the night still has potential," became a common refrain among job seekers and youth. Women arriving from other regions spoke of opening small places of their own. Social feeds filled with calls to head to Dongguan and make a start. Skeptics, however, highlight a core constraint. Spenders are scarce. In the heyday, fat foreign orders and elite splurging underwrote the scene. Now capital has exited and the wealthy departed. What's left is a mass market for inexpensive fun. High-end spending won't come back, one economist says. At best, budget entertainment survives. Hopes for a nightlife-led rebound remain, but the fundamentals are tight. Used equipment warehouses tell the story in stark relief. In September 2023, an injection molding plant in Tanglang Township shut its doors. A dealer's video showed unsold machines clogging aisles bound for the scrapyard. Closures have surged since August, the dealer said. "The machines pile up and don't sell. We're stuck." Weekend walks through industrial districts reveal empty roads and idle CNC rigs with no buyers. Local estimates suggest 70 to 80% of factories in Dongguan and Shenzhen are losing money. Breaking even counts as doing well. The smartphone cluster, once a crown jewel, has faded. Apple, Samsung, Huawei, Oppo, and Vivo all had supply chains running through Dongguan. Around 2015-2016, global shipments reached 1.5 billion units, with China making 80 to 90%. Dongguan accounted for 30 to 40% of the Pearl River Delta's capacity, turning out roughly 250-400 million units annually. But after a 2016 peak, production slid. By 2022, output fell below 200 million units, less than half its best years, signaling the end of the factory of the world era. The figures underscore the shift. In 2021, GDP broke 1 trillion yuan and population topped 10 million. A year later, growth slowed to 0.6%, under Guangdong's 1.9% average. In the first half of 2023, Dongguan ranked last among the province's 21 cities, at 1.5% growth. Industrial firms above designated size saw output fall 5.9% year over year, Electronic equipment manufacturing dropped 5%, electrical machinery 7.4%. Exports were down 11.3%. A modest 4.6% recovery in 2024 still trailed the national 5%, and many residents reported conditions felt worse. Industrial retreat triggered exits by foreign-invested firms. Roughly 3,500 companies across furniture, textiles, and electronics closed or relocated in 2023. In June 2025, Celestica shuttered its Dongguan subsidiary, shaking confidence. Formerly vibrant districts like Changping and Chang'an now show rows of roll-down shutters and dense clusters of factory-for-rent signs. Longtime residents say even the pandemic didn't look like this. Social stress has followed. In May 2024, a video showed unemployed youth sleeping inside giant concrete pipes for lack of rent money. Nicknamed rat people, they pedal shared bikes in search of day work and gather bottles at night. Depression-era images transported into the Pearl River Delta. City Hall hopes nighttime consumption can plug the gap, but operators are wary. Permits come faster, but the customers haven't returned, a KTV owner said. We upgraded furniture and the rooms stay empty. Similar pressure shows nationwide. Crackdowns and alcohol rules have gutted nightlife in places like Shanghai and Changsha, with closures erasing majorities of venues. Chengdu shut facilities ahead of big events. Policy jolts rarely last. Dongguan dazzled as the factory of the world, but that chapter has closed, banking on nightlife while the industrial base crumbles and capital and talent leave is palliative, not cure. The mass market wants cheap diversion. The affluent will not come back soon. Youth unemployment persists and industrial corridors decay. Neon conceals rather than fixes hollowing and anxiety. In that sense, Dongguan's bet mirrors the national economy's dilemma. The manufacturing age is waning. Everyone speaks of shifting to consumption. But rebuilding on a cracked foundation is hard. Even if the nights grow bright again, the glow may be brief.